Welcome back to GB News Saturday with me, Martin Daubney, on your TV, online and on your digital radio. Now, close to 16 million trees have been cut down on publicly owned land in Scotland as part of a major drive, wait for it, to build more wind farms. The person responsible for rural affairs, Mara Gudgeon, said that this has been happening since the year 2000, equating to a whopping 1,700 trees being cut down every single day. Scotland already has wind turbines that can generate 8.4 gigawatts of power, and that's more than half of the total wind power capacity in the entire UK. But now SNP ministers plan to install even more turbines. This is a story that makes my brain explode. Joining me now is Scottish Conservative MSP Liam Kerr. Liam, I just cannot get my head round the logical inconsistency of trying to save the planet by felling millions of trees. Please try and help me make sense of this madness.
Well, I think your astonishment will be shared by the Scottish public and indeed the UK public. Not just astonishment at the numbers that we're talking about, but the fact of it. And this is something I've been pursuing for a number of months. The previous Cabinet Secretary, despite making data available in previous years, was somewhat reticent, shall we say. But the new Cabinet Secretary commendably provided me just this week with the numbers. And as you say, the Scottish Government is estimating that just under 16 million trees have been felled on Forestry and Land Scotland sites, that's publicly owned sites in Scotland, to facilitate wind farm developments. And as you say, that's the equivalent to 1,700 per day, which is, I think astonishing is probably the right word.
I think by any sane metric, Liam, if 16 million trees bit the bullet, they'd be calling that a climate emergency. And yet they're slashing them down. And the question has to be, why? Is it because they want, is it subsidies? Is it money? Is it they're just so blinded to net zero, they're actually committing wanton environmental destruction? Please, again, actually try and make it make sense.
Well, I think the key thing here is that we're trying to get to, I think everyone is trying to get to a just transition to a fair energy mix. But that has to be underpinned by science and evidence. So one of the things that I've done as a follow-up from this is write back to the Cabinet Secretary and say, look, can you tell us how much carbon will be sequestered by or is saved by running through wind farms as opposed to the amount that would be sequestered had we not touched the trees? Because I think if they're going to take a rigorous approach to this, if they're going to say it is better to build wind farms than it is to have forestry, then they must surely have that data, because if they don't, I think that will be very concerning indeed.
Fascinating and concerning aspect of the report is the issue of repowering. And that means that when a wind turbine is taken out of commission, it can be replaced with a turbine that's massively, massively bigger, including some turbines that are up to 850 feet tall. And that's the equivalent of more than 60 double-decker buses. Is there any control whatsoever on these turbines, or is this now just the new normal?
Well, certainly the repowering is happening apace. There have been some concerns expressed by a body called the John Muir Trust. We have a new planning framework in Scotland, which the John Muir Trust have said it might set the bar so low, the threshold so low for wind turbines, that it's impossible for them not to meet it. And that could have really concerning effects on the countryside. And one of the things that prompted me to take this action to find out what's going on was the representations I've had from communities who are terribly worried about not only visual impact, but also damage to wildlife and trees, as we've seen, damage to businesses, particularly tourism. I think the key point is everyone accepts that we need a just transition to an energy mix, to a transition to net zero. But that has to be fair, it has to be managed, and it has to take account of the science.
OK, Liam Kerr, we're going to have to leave it there, but I would just add my own little twopenn's worth at the end, and that is, why are we cutting down 17 million trees? Why are we heading towards net zero obsession when I think a more rational balance may be to look at North Sea oil licenses? What about a bit of shale? What about cheaper energy for the masses? And how about we stop relying on wind turbines that simply conk out when the wind stops? That's just me. Sorry, it's the curse of logic. Let's move on now. Thank you, Liam, for joining us today on the show. So.